Welcome to the kitchen. Today we're going to focus on the stove. This is an Abrams Cox stove from Philadelphia, and it did three things in this modern kitchen at Pennypacker Mills. It cooked your food, very obvious. It heated the hot water for the house, and it heated the room because there was no basement in this wing of the house. Therefore, there was no way for the coal furnace in the basement in the main part of the house to get the heat to this room. So this was great on a cold winter day, but it also was a hot stove on a hot summer day. So think about how challenging that must have been for the cook. So we're going to look a little closer at the stove and how it actually worked and why we paid the cook more than anybody else, because she had to know how this worked. So the coal in the stove was brought up from the basement in buckets called hobs of coal. It was anthracite coal from that northern region of Pennsylvania. It would be delivered by a horse and wagon and dropped into the coal bin that went into the basement and brought up here to the kitchen. Coal would go in here, ashes would come down a little lower, and it would take hours for that heat to build up. And every morning the cook was starting with a cold stove. And so it would take her hours to get this warm enough to cook breakfast on the surface. So the heat would be building in there. And she could check by opening the door to see how the flame was going. Or she could actually use this handle and lift up the circle here and look straight down into that hot area and check things out. Now, the stove itself is a modern wonder in this time period. It's a vast improvement over the summer kitchen, which we have out in the back of the house. It allowed you to bring cooking into the house. No longer did you have to worry about your house burning down, of an open fire where you would have the potential for sparks to fly. Now you were totally enclosed. It all was in this spot. And so now you had a nice, secure place, no sparks, no open flame to burn you. However, there were some challenges. So it's cooking here, and you want to get this whole surface nice and hot for breakfast. The way you had to do that was by using dampers, and they were in different locations. And they did several things. They controlled temperature to a certain extent, in that the more closed it was, the more moderate your temperature was. The more open it was, it kind of brought fresh air in and lowered the temperature. The flues also helped move the heat from down here under the surface to eventually wrap around the stove, the oven. And it also helped bring up the gases and the excess heat up the flue, which goes out into the chimney. So you had this heat building up here, and so this was your hottest zone over the heat source. This was probably medium, and this was the low setting. So you might bring something to boil over here and then slide it down to simmer. And so pots and pans, you were going to use cast iron because you were cooking with radiant heat, the heat of this metal cast iron stove, and basically metal pots. So wide base, so you had direct contact. And it cooked your food much quicker and than open hearth cooking. And so you would prepare the food at the table, bring it over here, cook it here, put it in a serving bowl, and then in here would be where you would keep it until you were ready to bring it out to the guests. So this was your little warming area. And so this would keep it nice and warm. And then in the oven, this would be used later in the day. So for instance, if the cook wanted to have muffins for breakfast, she would have made them the night before, just because she would not be able to use this oven until later in the day. So for breakfast, there might be coffee and tea, there might be oatmeal, there might be pancakes, there could be eggs, bacon and sausage, that sort of thing. Anything that could be made on the stove here. As I said, nothing in the oven. So this was your modern kitchen. This was the center of your house, the hub of the house. And it was the place where everybody wanted to be on a winter day because it kept things nice and warm. And it made this room a much more enjoyable place to work. So the water for the house came from a well, and it came through these pipes, and it circulated through the stove, and then was kept up here in a 10-gallon tank. So we believe it kept it to about 90 degrees. And as you turn the faucets on, it would deliver hot water to the faucet. So this is your modern kitchen. Don't you appreciate your kitchen at home today? Thanks for coming.